your host, Kitu Kathari and Deepam Gandhi. In this podcast, we dig deep into the life experiences of our guests to connect the dots between their early experiences and what they're doing today. Today, we have special guest, Dr. Varun Gandhi. Varun, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Love and abundance, everyone. Deepam, Ketul, thank you for having me. I appreciate this invite and this opportunity to share my story. What I do is I call myself a life orchestrator. And in that sense, it's essentially helping people orchestrate their life. That could be their personal, individual self, but also business, also an event, also anything that's starting, like creation from nothing to something. That's what I love doing. I specialize in that. And I've been, working on several different projects in that sense as well. So yeah, I love, anyone that needs any kind of help in setting up something, just let me know and I can definitely help with that. Along with that, I also love giving back to the community, and we'll talk about that in different ways that I give back and how we can get more people involved. That's the gist of what I do. And, if you have, we can dive deeper into background.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that background.
Yeah, that sounds great. Before we dig deep into this conversation, I did want to remind everyone, excuse me. I wanted to remind everyone, if you're not already following our YouTube channel at Your Life Unfiltered on YouTube, please be sure to give us a subscribe. Every single week, we're going to bring on another high caliber guest to dig into their stories. So if you guys are into learning, please be sure to give us a subscribe. With that said, Deepam, over to you.
Thanks, Ketul. So, Varun, before we talk about any of those things in detail, we'd like to go back a few years. Talk to us a little bit more about your early childhood, early upbringing. What kind of environment did you grow up in? Any motivations or any inspirations that really stuck with you as you, grew up, and that kind of translated into what you're doing today?
My childhood was that traditional Indian childhood. You go to school every day, study, get good grades. Focus was completely on education, which it was great, and did that for. So I was born and brought up in Dubai, and I lived there for 15 years. So throughout there, I was in basically an Indian school that was offering, it's all of the education, everything was Indian. So I got to learn different languages. I got to, get exposure to quite a bit, but I was also in a way kind of sheltered, very, go to school, come back home, study on the, not a lot of friends during the weekdays, but on the weekends we'll get to play. In the summertime, we'd have a great time, and 2-3 months at a time, we'd just go out and, play all kinds of sports. So it was a fun time, but I was in a way programmed to think that my life has to follow a certain trajectory and it can't deviate from that. Right. And so as I graduated high school. So I came here when I was in 11th grade. So I finished 10th grade in Dubai, and then I moved here. And this was 2 months before 9/11. That's when I moved here to this country, coming from Dubai. Yeah. And so it was an interesting time for me, but I wasn't, there wasn't a lot of racism for me. I didn't face a lot of that at that time. Occasionally, but that wasn't, nothing to remember. And so I graduated high school here, went to a great college, Georgia Tech, did my bachelor's, but I was lost. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't know what I wanted to focus on. A lot of people, they have this thing like, I want to do this, and then they stick to it and they always get it, And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to apply and see what happens. Even when I applied for, the entrance to Georgia Tech, I applied as an undecided engineer. Like I wasn't even decided on what kind of engineering I wanted to do. So I just went in and I was exploring. I was like, all right, let me try this. Let me try that. So I went through multiple different careers or different engineerings, and then finally ended up on the one that's been in my family for so long, like 3-4 generations. All of us have been civil engineers. My dad, his dad, and on and on. We're like, all right, I'm just going to go do that because that's what we've known for most of my life. So within civil engineering, you could also branch out in environmental engineering. So that's how I entered and ended up in environmental engineering. I got my bachelor's, master's, P.hD, all in the same field, same university. And I mean, it was a great time going through all of this, but at the end of the day, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just said, I'm just going to stay in school longer. So I went from a undergrad to a master's. When I started my master's, I said, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to stay in school even longer and let me just do a PhD. So instead of being in school for 2 more years, I was there for another 4 years. About 4 years. So it was about 9.5 years in the same college, just under a decade. And now I'm out with these 3 degrees, with a PhD in hand. And thinking about it, what PhD is literally like imagine like the space that you're in right now, like the room that you're in, Ketul. Imagine each and every point in that room to be a possible career opportunity, a possible career path. A PhD is like taking that point and even dissecting it even further. Like I was so specialized in one particular area in environmental engineering that I didn't see anything outside of that. So when I graduated with a PhD, I went into a job that was, again, highly specialized in that one specific aspect. And I didn't enjoy it. I was there for a year and a half. I mean, it was a great salary. I moved to Boise, Idaho for that job. So I was in Atlanta my whole time in my life in the U.S. And all of a sudden I moved across country to this state that I'd not even heard of. To a city that I'd never heard of. So Boise, Idaho, my first time. And I moved out there, not knowing anyone. And I said, you know what, this is the job that I got. The only offer, the only interview I gave, the only offer I got, I was like, I'm just going to take it, right? So I moved out there. And rough times, because it was very hard for me at the beginning. Now, fast forward, rewinding a little bit, while I was graduating my PhD, I also went through a hard breakup. This was like we were in a 2-year relationship at that point. And, for me, I had seen myself with her, like, family and all this stuff, right? I'd seen my whole life with this person. And then all of a sudden, we just started falling apart and she moved away and it kind of just fell apart from there within 6 months after she moved away. Well, that unraveled me because I was so stuck on this one path in life, and all of a sudden I have this traumatic, tragic event that, like, I remember the first, let's say, the month or so after the breakup, I'd wake up in bed like with tears in my eyes. Like literally every morning I'd wake up just crying, like, why is this my reality? I couldn't accept what I was going through because I would have dreams and think about all the past stuff with her. And this new reality without her is like unbearable. And again, this was 3 months before I was graduating. So I had to focus on my dissertation, my 200-page book that's sitting somewhere on the shelf behind me. I had to really focus on it, but I couldn't because I was going through this, hard time in my life. So I would use comedy as like the relief for me in the morning. I'd wake up, go through this whole thing for an hour, cry it out, finally get myself out of bed. And I'd watch Jon Stewart, who was on The Daily Show at that time. And that kind of like brought light to my life, like to my day. Like I would actually, that 22-minute segment would make me smile and laugh enough I could like pull through the day and, actually get some work done. So comedy has played a huge role in my life. And then now I was going through all of this. I moved to Idaho. Didn't know anyone there. So this could have like represented this perfect opportunity for me to dive deeper inside of myself because I was already going through a lot of pain and suffering. I didn't have any distractions. I didn't know anyone there. I couldn't go out and hang out with people because I didn't know anyone. But instead, I distracted myself and found everything that I could to distract myself with. Initially, a couple of months in, I found some friends, made some friends. And then after that, like every weekend, Friday night, Saturday night, we'd meet up, play some FIFA, down some alcohol, go out to the clubs, dancing, have like the time of our lives, Friday night, Saturday night. And it was literally like a bottle of whiskey every night. Like 3 of us friends would finish the 750 Friday night, 750 Saturday night. And that's how, like, I was literally like killing myself with all this poison because I couldn't deal with, that pain and suffering. And so this went on for a year and a half. Like I was totally different person, a lot of junk food, a lot of fast food, late night eating, all this unhealthy junk in my system. around a lot of negativity in my life. So my thoughts were constantly negative. I remember like a year into my job, in the afternoon, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., I'd crash. I wouldn't have any energy because my mind was racing so fast in that negative direction, like thinking about what that person is doing, scrolling on their Facebook, constantly like putting my energy, attention on that. And so by 2 p.m., 3 p.m., I'd have to go out, take myself for a walk, like get some fresh air, drink coffee to like get my energy up. I realized I was doing something to my body because I wasn't like this before, right? And so over time, this year and a half, I like degraded my body. I finally got to a point, year and a half in, where I wake up and there's this pain in my solar plexus, in my stomach region, and I don't know what it was from. Like it didn't make sense. I went, got all this medical tests done and all this stuff, and I just couldn't understand. The doctors didn't tell me what it was because physically there was nothing wrong with me medically. Well, turns out it was this job. I wasn't happy with this job. I was at this thing for a year and a half. Everything was covered, but I still wasn't like satisfied. Like that thing, like, oh, you're chasing something greater. And like, I didn't see that in this job. I always felt in the back of my mind that there was something else greater out there for me. I didn't know what it was. Even when I was doing my PhD, I felt that. I had no inkling. I didn't even look to explore and think more about it. Well, everything unraveled in about 4 months. I decided that I'm going to leave my job. So first thing with Desi parents is I got to convince them that this is the right decision for me, right? 9.5 years of education. Now it's like, I'm going to leave all of that behind for what? I don't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I literally, when I left this job, it was a blank slate. Like you figure, whatever you want to do, what you're interested in. That was an interesting time in my life because I had money saved up, but I had a lot of fear inside of me because I wasn't bringing that steady income, and what will people think? And, like that paycheck wasn't there sustaining me. So I had to like dip into my savings. So it was a lot of scarcity mindset and all of this initially. So this is when I transitioned into becoming an entrepreneur. I'd realized now, going back to my childhood, I've had these memories where, like at the end of the year, we'll have this class party, and I would take charge on putting the whole party together, making sure everyone has a great time, organizing the food, the games, the activities, and all this stuff. I would raise funds to make all of this happen so we could get all this food and all that. The way I would raise funds is becoming an entrepreneur. Back then there were like these, cards where you'd have statistics on it, like wrestling cards. And we basically were playing a game that, we'll distribute all the cards, and the idea was to get all the cards back and you're the winner. So I would make it physically on hand, like write this stuff down on literal like pieces of paper and sell it to people in my bus, like for a dollar here, a dollar there. And I'd raise like $60, $80 to put this whole party together. Awesome. So it was like that entrepreneurial spirit was in there. I just hadn't really tapped into it. So now it was finally a chance. I left this job. Hey, perfect opportunity to tap into this entrepreneurial spirit. So at that time, my roommate, so I'd moved back to Atlanta, and I was rooming with this guy, and him and we had like friends from a while ago. So we decided that, hey, we have experience in this whole PhD, master's, MBA side of things. Why not help international students want to come to America or any other international country for grad school, for PhD, for MBA? Let's help them through the application, figure out what things to apply to and all universities to apply to and everything. So kind of utilize my PhD background to this entrepreneurial spirit. And now we had this kind of successful business, consulting, coaching. I did that for a couple of years. And at this time, when I moved back to Atlanta, I'd also created this ritual of meditation. So this was a year and a half after the breakup, 2 years after the breakup. I was going through a really rough time, still going through it. But when I moved back to Atlanta, I said, I want to do something healthy for myself. So at that time I cut out alcohol, drastically cut it out from my system. Very occasionally would drink. But when I moved back, I said, I want to do meditation. So there was this book that I read by Deepak Chopra called The Book of Secrets. And this book, I mean, it's very high level. So when I first picked it up, I wasn't spiritual at all in any sense. So when I read this, like 95% of it went over my head. Like I didn't understand jack about it. The one thing that I picked up was meditation. And so then I Googled with meditation and finally like picked up this habit of meditating every day. And honestly, that has been my savior. That helped me get out of, I wasn't diagnosed with depression, but I would call it that, right? I felt it, right? I didn't go to doctors. I didn't really care for all that. I just knew that I could get through all of this myself. And so, but it was meditation that kind of helped me through this process. And we can go through, dive deeper into meditation as well and how I started that. But yeah, this is essentially my journey. And now where I ended up is after I left that consulting thing, I said, I want to combine spirituality with entrepreneurship. And that's where I'm at right now, is helping people live a healthy life, whether that's mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, creating products or services that help people live a better life. So we have a lot of cleanses for the body, things for the mind, like affirmations. There's some posters around me on my sides that are like reminders and affirmation reminders. So I have a bunch of different products that just help people live a better life. And that's where I'm at right now.
That is absolutely amazing, Varun. What an incredible story, by the way. Thanks for sharing that. There's a lot of nuggets there. But one thing, just on a fun note, just that jumps out to me is, what was your topic during the PhD? I'm just curious.
Okay, so now I'll show you how deep I had to dive into this one topic.
All right.
So there's environmental engineering.
Okay.
Below that, there are 3 different levels. There's like a water pollution, water engineering, there's air engineering, and there's soil engineering.
Okay.
Now, within the water engineering, there is wastewater, there's like drinking water, there's the water that goes out of our toilets, there's the rainwater, there's all these different kinds of waters. Okay. So within that, I was focused on the water treatment portion. Now, water treatment, like before the water comes into our homes, it goes through this whole treatment process. So within that, there are multiple different steps. There's like, you do this first, that first, that first. The last step, after like, I think 5 or 6 steps, the last one is disinfection, which is, removing the bacteria, inactivating the bacteria. So they either use chlorine, UV, ozone, and there are a couple other lesser known ones. Okay. So now within the filter, within that disinfection, I was focused on the UV. Now within the UV, I was focused on one aspect of it. So that was my dissertation.
Wow, very focused.
Water flow, how does water flow in a UV treatment system? That was my dissertation.
Oh my God. That
you get an idea of how detailed it was and how narrow my focus was. Like, yeah, basically like one point in this whole room was my focus. And whereas this whole room existed, I just didn't even know about it.
That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's really, really focused. So I guess the question I have is, how do you get the content for a very focused topic like that, right? Because it's probably a lot easier to get, references and resource materials and even other experts if it's a broader based topic. But if you're honing in on a very specific point within that broad spectrum, it's like, how do you get a lot of available resources at your disposal to be able to like really dive deep into that?
The way this project materialized is, I think it was just meant for it to happen to me. So I was thinking about, I'd already signed up for my master's and I was thinking about going for a PhD, but I hadn't made up my mind yet. It was very early on in my master's. This is actually the summer before I started my master's program. And I was deciding, and my professor at that time, I'd done research with him as an undergrad. So I knew I wanted to continue with him during my master's as well. Amazing guy. I love this guy. A lot of wisdom. At that moment, he was like, you know what? I just put in a proposal for this one project on UV disinfection using the specific kind of technique to dive deeper into this. And we'll see what happens. I'll find out in a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks will go by and he was like, yeah, I got funding for it. It's $250,000. And, I need someone to run this thing. I was like, well, it sounds like I don't know what I want to do. So it sounds like it's available for me. Let me just do it, So that's what caused me to jump from a master's to a PhD and stay in school for a lot longer than I intended on.
Got
It just
it.
happened. Like I wasn't planning on it. I hadn't even like thought about it. People usually like, Kitul, you have a good question. Like, yeah, they think about this. Like, I really want to work on this one aspect, like cancer research, and I want to focus on this. But it just came to me, and I'm like, I'll just take it. Let's see what happens. Yeah,
awesome. It almost sounds like you almost fell into it. Just by being the virtue of being there. So
yeah,
I think a lot of the times in my life, it's been like that. It's just falling into things and just being there at the right time, the right place, and it happens to be the right thing.
Yeah, I do want to emphasize that one point that you just mentioned, right? That you kind of fell into it. And the reason I want to emphasize is that I think a big portion of that is also being receptive to new opportunities. Because for a lot of people, it's, they have a specific goal in mind and they sometimes don't look into other opportunities that may detract from there. But it's, at least based on what you're describing, it sounds to me that like your general propensity is to be more receptive to new ideas, to new opportunities. Would you say that's a true statement?
Yeah. I think that's a really great way of putting it, because it's like being open to seeing other possibilities, right? Like we're so focused on that one thing happening that maybe something greater just happened to you, but you failed to see it because you were so focused on this one lesser thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And it happens a lot, and I was that way once too. Like I was so focused on, okay, I just want this and I don't care about anything else. But I think it takes training to look at everything, just being open to all possibilities as opposed to honing in on one possibility. And that's what quantum theory is too, is like at every moment in time, any possibility is possible. There's an equal opportunity for that possibility to, manifest itself. So why are you honing in on the one thing? Just let it be open. Let it be like an open system, and the best will happen to you at all times. And that's what I believe in.
It's interesting because you are combining spirituality with quantum theory. That's what I'm getting, right? And it's interesting how you're making that comparison of intertwining two distinct topics together. So would you, I know that you got into spirituality a little bit later on, right? I think you said it was between finishing school and then figuring out what you're going to do next. But would you say your mindset and perspective has changed a lot as you went more towards the spiritual side of things? And would you say that with your mindset changing, has your approach also changed?
Yeah. When I was going through school, through college, I feel like I was drifting through life. Like I wasn't applying myself in the sense of like, I really care about doing this. I'm just going to go along with the flow, and whatever comes to me, it sticks. And, if it doesn't, it doesn't, that kind of thing. So in that sense, like I wasn't really committed to anything, so if things got hard, I just drop it and move on to the next thing. And so that's kind of the way I was. And now I am more aware of what I really want because of this meditation, like diving deeper into myself, getting to have a better understanding of what you really care about, like what I really care about, right? And for I started meditating when I was around 30. So for 29, 30 years of my life, I was so focused on the external. Like I'm going to achieve, I'm going to get this degree and that thing and this and that. I was always focused on that. I never had the opportunity to slow down to introspect. Like it was always that rat race, just running constantly on the treadmill. But I never got off that treadmill to say, wait, let me just stop and see what's in here. So once I finally started meditating, that's when so up until that time, it was like a closed system. I was very closed-minded, right? I was at one-track mind. Now I started to see other possibilities. That also coincided with me leaving the job, seeing other possibilities in the career as well. So that kind of opened up my mindset to like, wait, it's like you could do anything. Like if you really say that you want to do this, that you could get it done. Like you guys didn't have any experience with the podcast, but you really wanted to do it. So you figured it out. You called me up and said, let's, got some advice, and you got it off the ground. And now here you go, like 26 episodes later, and that's how it is. Like, you just learn on the job. Like even when I graduated high school or college, I had a degree, And then I went for this internship and I was learning everything from scratch all over again because it doesn't match up. You know, it's like you go to the job and you get trained over there for the first year or 2 years, and then finally you can start applying your training. It's the same thing with anything in life. Whatever you want to do, you could train yourself, learn along the way for the first 6 months, and then just apply that to anything in life. And yeah, I think a lot has changed with my mindset once I started meditating. I think if someone is looking for that thing that will help them, look at meditation. It's not overnight. It'll take time. I've been meditating for about 7 years, 8 years now. So it's a long process, but once you're committed to it, then it's life-changing, life-altering.
Got it. So for our listeners who may not be intimately familiar with meditation, what the process of meditation and how does it help, do you mind expanding a little bit on what is meditation? Just what do you do when you're meditating? And then how did it help you? Just going deeper into that aspect, you know, what do you achieve once you meditate?
So, all right, I'll talk about my process, right? How I got to it. So I pick up this book, I read about meditation. I don't understand anything about it, and I Google it. Now on Google, there's all sorts of information. This was 2015. There was all sorts of information, all kinds of blogs, all kinds of stuff on Google, right? A lot of crap on Google too about meditation. You know, there's a lot of people talking about how it was back then. It was like, oh, you got to stop your thoughts, right? So that's what I was focusing on. I was like, oh, I got to stop my thoughts. Let me see how I can do this. So I kind of used the trial and error method. I didn't go to any classes. I did it myself. So I read a lot about it, and then I said, okay, let me start applying it. And I essentially created a journal, like basically took a notebook, wrote out, okay, what was my state going into my meditation? Well, what time did I start? How long did it last? What was my state going into the meditation? What was my state during meditation? What kind of thoughts came about? What kind of themes came about? Was I thinking about one particular person? What was my state after meditation? So before, after, during. And I did that for a month, consistently write in my journal. After that, I stopped the journal, but I kept the habit of meditating on a regular basis. Initially, I started out with, I was like, oh, I'm going to do 20 minutes, right? Start out grand, like just go big or go home. Well, that doesn't work with meditation. I stopped meditating for a while. Then I realized, you know what? I need to go baby steps. So let me start with 5 minutes. So I sit down for 5 minutes and I'm like, all right, let me start meditating. Initially, I would, at that time I was renting this one room in my friend's apartment. All of my belongings was in that room. So I would sit in the corner, face the corner. Basically all the distractions are out of sight. And I would imagine tried out multiple different things. So either like put a dot on the wall, open my eyes and just focus on that dot. I would close my eyes, imagine a candle or imagine a dot, or kind of like, you know, find a way to focus, because I was kind of all over the place at that time. Well, that worked well. It at least got me in the habit of meditating. Initially, when I started, I would sit down and start meditating, and then I would, you know, the question would come up like, how long has it been? You know, I think it's already been 5 minutes. Well, I look at the phone, it's only been 25 seconds. And I'm like, oh, crap. We got a long ways to go. So what I started doing is I put a 5-minute timer on my phone. You know what? Put a 5-minute timer on your phone and set it aside so it's not within hand's reach and distracting you. This way, you know when 5 minutes are up because your phone's going to let you know. And now it was just space for me to sit, right? So at this time, I was running constantly. So initially, meditation helped me slow down. So if you're approaching meditation from that space where you've never had this time to introspect, it'll help you slow down. It'll give you this space for you to just look within. You know, it'll give you this opportunity to look within, right? So that's the first change. Now, what happens when you start looking within? Well, you'll notice different kinds of feelings. You'll notice different kinds of thoughts. You know, you'll, at some, you know, initially it may be, oh, I had this thought a day ago. I had this thought some time ago. You know, you're looking back on life. But at some point after meditating in long enough, you'll be like, oh, I'm having this thought right now. So that's the difference. Like initially you're not in that present moment for a lot of the time, like 24 hours within the day. How often are we actually in the present moment as opposed to being in our thoughts, thinking about a thought, just not really living life. We're just in our ruminating, right? And I mean, there's this book called Chatter, and it's about how our constant mental chatter is causing us not to live life anymore. Like we're focused so much just in our thoughts. And I was in that phase initially. So the kind of analogy would be we're in the ocean and there's this turbulent water at the very top. But when you dive deeper, you're in peace, still water, serene water. That's what meditation did for me. Initially, I was like this turbulent thoughts, like constantly nonstop. And then as I meditated month after month after month, I was diving deeper into it and just being still, working on being still. So meditation and there are different forms of meditation now. One thing is like, sitting down, doing that. Another thing is chanting. That could be a form of meditation. And those are the traditional, if you want to call it, like, what we know meditation as. But meditation can also be you for 2 hours just focus on your craft, whatever that is, artist, painter, songwriter, whatever that craft is. You're just lost in that craft and just completely focused on that. That's meditation. You're going out for a walk and you're focused on the environment, not really thinking about any thoughts, but just seeing things, everything that's there, enjoying it, laughing, smiling at whatever's happening around you. That's a meditation. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what meditation is. Like how often can you be present, looking at, your state and the way you are. Just
summarize in a few words, just being in the moment, right? Wherever you are, it's just probably what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. Being in the moment, and not thinking about present, past. You're just, you're not even analyzing anything. You're just living it. A lot of the times we're asking questions in real time, like, oh, what's going on? You're trying to make sense of certain things. All of that is not meditation, right? And I think the end goal of meditation is to always be in meditation. Like there's no time that you're not in meditation. You don't have to sit there to like, oh, this is my time for meditation. And that's like an advanced state where 24 hours, you're just meditation. It's always a meditation.
That's the goal. Sounds like.
I'd actually like to dig a little bit deeper into how this connects to your current entrepreneurial journey, right? And what I mean by that is you've gotten involved with a couple different things, right? You got your degree in environmental engineering as a focus within civil engineering. Then you have all the stuff you've been doing with meditation and spirituality recently. How's that impacted your ability to grow your business and to run your entrepreneurial ventures? As you've gotten deeper into these different disciplines, have you found ways to take core practices of either environmental engineering or spirituality and meditation and combine that with your business?
That's a great question. Plant-based is one of the big things for me. Ahimsa, nonviolence, right? Being Jain. We really care about that. And so I'm finding ways to make that a practice in my life. So being plant-based, not, using phrases of harm or how there's kill two birds with one stone. Paying attention to all those little subtle things because it's part of our daily life. We don't realize how entrenched meat and killing and violence is in our daily life. And it's all around us, right? That's why it's everything has those messages. And so I think it's being very aware of the things that are around me, what I'm being exposed to, applying that same thing for Kavir, my kid, making sure that he's around positive energy and, things that are playing in the background. I don't want, guns being firing in the background while my kid is just playing whatever. That's programming him with all of this negative energy, right? So instead I have different kinds of chanting going on, all this stuff in the background while he's playing and just having a great time. It's so I kind of live that life too. I make sure that I'm having mantras going on, like while I'm working on my computer. I'll have something playing in the background that's putting me in a great mood. You know, like any kind of music, whatever you enjoy. I'll even in my business, I don't deal with any vegetarian products. It's all plant-based. I do events. I host events. I have this one spiritual festival that I have done in the past and would love to bring it back. It's called the Spiritual Block Party. We did it right before the pandemic hit, like literally 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And it was a great event. I loved doing it. It was all plant-based. Made sure that all the attendees, everyone was like, adhering to those principles. And so that's essentially my whole life is, living life from the sense of what is the greatest state that I'm in, and in that state, like how can I give more of that state to other people as well? I've done the work to get myself in this state. I mean, I remember when I was, that depressed, like going through those rough times after a bottle of alcohol and waking up hungover, and like I feel that, right? I know I don't ever want to get back there. I know that I don't ever want to, go back to the state where I'm feeling like that. Another principle that I apply in my life is with food. Anything that goes in my system, I pay attention to it through its life cycle. Meaning, let's say I eat something right now, like Taco Bell was my favorite. Like I loved eating Taco Bell, right? I would eat it and it tastes great. Like, I was in heaven for that 10 minutes, or not even 10 minutes, like 5 minutes, you just gobble it down real quick, right? And then, but an hour later, I'd feel pains in my stomach. 3 hours later, I'd still have those pains. The next morning, I'm like, in the bathroom and it's not coming out. It's like stuck. So I like pay attention to all of that. Like, how does that food sit in my system? How long does it stay in my system? How is my energy during the life cycle of it being in my system? And things that are not doing me good, vegan food is great. Like being vegan is great, but vegan food is also unhealthy. There are unhealthy options like French fries and Impossible burgers and all that, right? I would pay attention to how these burgers, how these things are feeling in my system. And if it doesn't feel good to me, I'm going to remove it from my body. Like, I don't want to eat it anymore. Right. So like really, really honing down on the diet, on not just the physical food diet, but the mental diet, the emotional diet, everything, like just paying attention to each and every aspect of your life. I think that's where meditation has brought me. And that applies to how I deal with people. I want to make sure that I'm respectful. I'm not, hurting anyone unnecessarily. Like, unless they did something to me, then I can like come back. I'm just kidding. But yeah, just, like being very respectful of everyone. And then the last part is the seva aspect. I feel like, seva has been a huge giving back in whatever form that is, being part of YJP, the Jain youth organizations, being part of Jaina, like growing your culture, your community, all of that seva, right? Giving back in some way. One thing that started during the pandemic, we had this opportunity to feed people. So what happened was, the pandemic hit, California was shut down, everything shut down, right? So businesses were shut down. People didn't have an source of income coming in, employees that were laid off. So now there was this crisis where people were at home. They didn't have food on their table. So this one organization, they came to me and a friend of mine. They tell us like, hey, we want to do something for the community. What can we do? We'll fund everything, whatever. You just put something together and let's give back. So that time we put some brains together and we decided to create this drive where one Sunday we would meet up and put grocery bags together, supplies, like some oil, some salt, some sugar, like basic things. We did that one weekend and it was a great success. We, all of us enjoyed it, the volunteers that came out. It's kind of smooth process. We were able to donate all those bags to the community and, everyone had a great time. And we said, you know what, let's do it again. And so we started one in May 2020. That grocery thing, we actually went for 21 weeks. So we ended up donating about 8,400 bags of groceries. About a couple of weeks into it, we asked ourselves, like, what else can we do? We realized that not everyone has a space to cook these meals, the groceries that we're giving them. Why not give them fresh meals, right? The homeless, people living on the streets. So we had this kitchen, we got a team together, and we started putting about 1,000 meals together every Sunday. And we would take it out in the community, distribute it into different parts of LA and Orange County. Well, we started doing that, and we're still doing that to this very day. Every Sunday, we've been doing that for the last 130 plus weeks. Thus far, we have fed, let me look at the exact count, 240,764 meals.
Wow.
That is so impressive. That's
Absolutely.
a huge number.
Impressive.
Yeah, almost 250,000. And all of these are now they're plant-based. When we first started, they had some cheese in it, all vegetarian. And over time, over the last year or so, we've converted to 100% plant-based. So I kind of bring that Seva aspect, in different parts of my life as well. The goal for 2023 in this project, we've been running the center for the last 2 years, and everything's kind of set. We have this whole template that anyone, anywhere wants to start this in your community, whatever part of the country, whatever part of the world, we can help you figure the process out, get you set up in a kitchen, get you, set up with, if you want to cook 100 meals, we can help you cook 100 meals, find organizations to come pick up those meals and go out into the streets and, distribute them to the people. So we can help you with any process, any step along the way. So I'm just getting the word out. That's our goal for 2023 is to set up centers like these in all parts of the U.S. where we're feeding. I mean, there are 500,000 homeless people throughout the U.S., 50, 60,000 in LA itself. I know Bay Area has a whole bunch of them. New York has a whole bunch of them. And so, we want to feed people, and that's our goal. Anyone that's looking, that's interested, we will also help fund part of it as well, through the process. So yeah, we're like all hands in, deep in this stuff. And if anyone is out there that wants to do something, just reach out to me.
What's the name of the organization? So what's a good way for anyone to get in touch if they want to get involved with this in whichever city they may live in?
Yes, they can reach out to me. The name of the organization is called the Joy of Sharing Foundation. And there are the way it works is the initial donors that came to us, that's the Joy of Sharing Foundation, right? They funded all of the grocery stuff. The first year and a half, they funded 100% of all our meals. This year, they said we'll fund the first 1,000 meals every Sunday. So 52,000 meals in the year. And then the remaining meals we have to raise funds for, which is about another 1,000 meals or so. Yeah, so that's kind of how it works. The Joy of Sharing Foundation is who we volunteer for. But if you want to if you have any questions, if you want to start this in your area, just definitely contact me, Instagram, Dr. Varun Gandhi, email varun@drvarungandhi.com.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fascinating, right? It's because, and how long have you been doing this? It sounds like the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, it started in May 2020.
Okay, wow. So that's actually impressive. So basically in a span of a couple of years, right? I guess a little over 2.5 years, it's fed so many different people. So I guess my question there is, how's the scaling process for that? Because I imagine to get to that level, there's a lot of people that have to be involved. There's a lot of outreach that has to happen. There has to be a good way to distribute out the messaging. So what has been your experience with that? How have you been able to quickly scale that up to such a pretty large number?
Transport the food as well.
That as well.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a great question. We found this kind of niche, this need in the community where there are people on the street. Yeah, they're living out there. They're hungry. There are all of these organizations. Their main aim is they want to go out into the streets and feed people. Now, their pain point is they have to even cook the food. Right. So they have to take the morning, 3-4 hours, cook 100-200 meals, and then go out 3-4 hours, distribute it into their communities. That's a whole 8-9 day thing. We realized, look, we have this kitchen. We can find all of the resources. let's put together the meals that people at all these organizations, they can come to us, pick up these meals and distribute them. So like we'll do half the work, they'll do half the work, and together we'll complete the picture. All right. So I talk about scaling. So that's kind of that's the structure of it. So we don't do the work, we don't distribute it ourselves, but these organizations do the work for us. They're there, they want to do it. So we said, let's just fulfill the need and create the meals, right? So now our focus was, how can we create healthy meals that taste good, that are plant-based, that people will want to eat? So we started with 4 different menu items. So this is the initial version of it. 2 of them are Indian. So we do garbanzo beans and rice, or rajma, kidney beans and rice. And the other 2 are pasta. We do red sauce with pasta, red sauce with some vegetables. And then this is the non-vegan version, which is the pesto sauce, which has some cheese inside the sauce. Couldn't do much about it. So that was like a green sauce pasta. And we alternated between them. So rice pasta, rice pasta, rice pasta. We have gotten great feedback because it's not just a regular pasta. We put like a little spicy. It's not like too spicy. We actually had to tone it down. We had like extra spicy and all of that. But we got feedback like, hey, you got to tone it down. These people are not used to this, So yeah, we had to like cut it in half. But we made those adjustments. They told us like reduce the amount of oil that we use. All right, we cut that out. Reduce the garlic that you're using. All right, we reduced that. So kind of made those adjustments as we went. Scaling terms. My experience has been that anytime we need any kind of resource can be, all right, like Thanksgiving. Last Thanksgiving, we did 5,000 meals on Thanksgiving Day. We prepared those meals on site and had these organizations come up and pick up these meals from us. So that day we needed extra volunteers because Thanksgiving meal, we don't just do the pasta. We did the pasta, we did a cookie, we did a little dinner roll and water bottle. So it's like a whole Thanksgiving meal. Well, that needed a lot of hands because we got trays of cookies. So now we had to have people put it in individual packaging. We got trays of these dinner rolls. We had to like individually wrap it. So we've really, really needed volunteers, like at least 80 to 100 volunteers is what we needed. On a usual basis, we have about 30, 40 volunteers come in on every Sunday. So we need to double this. So I put it out into the Facebook community, all these different vegan groups, all these different plant-based LA groups in LA. I spread the word. People came out in droves. Like we had no shortage of volunteers. There were extra volunteers that came out. They were just hanging out because we're giving them an avenue for giving back. I feel like there are a lot of people that have either the time or the money, and they want to put it to something that's meaningful, not like, oh, I'm just going to throw it to this one organization that does something elsewhere in the world that I won't see the impact of. No, you could actually do this in your community right now. You could donate $1,000. Each meal costs us $2.50. You could donate $25. You'll feed 10 people in your community right now. And I feel like that value of giving back, people will just love it. So anytime we need volunteers, we're shortage of volunteers, we'll call a few people. They'll come out. I'll put her on Facebook. I'm kind of like the social media guy. So I'll put her on Facebook, Instagram. People will come out. And we'll keep rotating volunteers. So we have it in a system where, we don't want volunteer burnout. So we'll keep like having volunteers come in on a regular basis. Like, okay, you can come in like twice a month. You don't have to come in every month, every week in the month, That's how we kept it scalable, made sure that it's sustainable too. We have enough volunteers every Sunday and they're not burning themselves out. So that's how we did it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. That actually makes a lot of sense. And I can definitely see how providing that value proposition as well as the storytelling behind, the types of value they're going to be able to add to the community, that's very important to get people to show up and dedicate their time and energy. With that said, talking about storytelling, I did want to switch gears and talk about your podcast that you did for, I forgot how long exactly, but your podcast was centered around What's Your Story? Do you want to tell us about how that got started, how's it going, as well as what inspired you to want to do it?
What inspired me was a challenge to myself. One of my challenges in life has been speaking, and I haven't been comfortable with it. even though it may look like, oh, he's a good speaker, a decent speaker. But within, there was a lot of internal turmoil every time I'm speaking, right? And this is generational in a sense, trauma passed on multiple generations. And, I feel like everyone at some point has to deal with this point, come to this fact that, all right, this happened a long time ago, but for me not to pass it on to my kid, I have to deal with it. I have to go through the healing of, understanding what it is and then heal myself from it. So speaking up has been one of those challenges for me. And I did it through YouTube and these podcast interviews. And it was a progression too. And, so in the first time, I remember I was speaking at Jaina, and I had to prepare for it. So I was like, you know what, this is 2017, and I had to prepare for the conference. So I just created clips on YouTube. I would just put whatever random content and I'd record the video and upload it to YouTube. So 1 month before, July is the conference, all of June, every day in June, I'd release a video. Well, then after that, I said, okay, that was too much. So then I said, you know what, I'm going to do interviews. So then the following summer, I started doing interviews. Actually, that winter, I did a couple of interviews and I stopped, took a break, came back to it the following summer. I did a couple more interviews, took a break from it, came back to it the following summer, did a few more interviews. Now, finally, I was like, okay, getting more comfortable with this. And I kept doing those consistently for a little bit. And then I kind of lost steam, and then I took a break, and then I brought it up as a different version. Initially it was like interviews, capturing people's stories. Then in 2020, during the pandemic, I said, I want to do conversations like, hey, let's bring up a topic of mental health, and let's have a panel of experts talking about different aspects of mental health, right? So I curated the speakers, put this together on Zoom. Every 2 weeks, I'd have a different topic. So we covered like men's abuse, we covered women's abuse, cultural appropriation, all kinds of different things. And then this was also a version of What's Your Story? And then after that, I went back to the interviews, and I really got serious about interviewing people for, this is again, like, you're talking about the process of improvement. I was improving every time, diving deeper, asking better questions, getting more comfortable asking questions. So finally, at this point, I've probably, I think I've done about 45, 50 episodes over time, and about an hour long each. And some of the content is out there. Most of it's on YouTube. But once the baby was born, I haven't done anything with it. So I'm on a hiatus right now.
Maybe bring him on once he's of age to start speaking.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Great to see, your journey of podcasting. We kind of in a similar state right now. Ketan and I, we're just starting out, trying to find our, what's our strategy, what do you want to focus on, the mediums of distribution, the guests, etc. So hopefully we'll be able to, definitely reach out to you and get some guidance from your experience.
Sure. Anytime. Always there.
Awesome.
Great.
So,
fantastic. So I think Deepam, you're about to say the same thing I am, but I think
I was going to say
to move to the next segment of the podcast. So the next segment we're calling Rapid Fire. With that said, let's do it.
All right.
Whoa. What was that? All right. So rapid fire, Varun, first thing that comes to mind, and let me know when you're ready and we'll just jump right in.
I'm ready.
All right. Tea or coffee?
Both.
Whoa. Okay. Interesting. Mountains or beaches?
Oh. It just depends on my mood. I love both.
Okay. If you were to pick one, which one would it be right now?
Right now, I'd say mountain.
Okay. Yeah, well, you live in LA, so you have both. So yeah,
both.
No doubt.
Within an hour.
I know. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Got it. How early are we talking?
5, 6. Not too early.
That's pretty early. Some people would definitely think it'll be early. Okay. What's your favorite comfort food?
I think it changes, but one of them is acai bowl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite virtue in others?
Favorite virtue in others? I think having a nice smile.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting as well. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Complaining. People
Oh,
complaining.
somebody's. Okay.
Yeah, like whining, moaning, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. What's your secret superpower?
Secret superpower. I'd say being a good listener.
Oh. Okay. Wow. What's a superpower you wish you had?
Being able to, going back to speaking, like being able to command a room.
Huh. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's an
That's
interesting one.
Like a large audience, you know, like 250 plus people, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Have you
Okay.
like taken active efforts to try to learn how to do that better, like Toastmasters or some kind of public speaking course or anything like that?
Yeah, I've done Toastmasters. I've also done events where we would like do a meditation. So my partner he does the meditation. Right before that, I would do a little 5-10 minute talk about some topic, just bring up something. So yeah, kind of stretch myself in different ways.
All right. Well, good luck with the future endeavors. I'm sure this one is a realistic one. So often we hear like supernatural stuff, like teleportation, or reading quickly, like reading thousands of books in a matter of seconds. But this one is definitely attainable. So good luck with this one.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones was you do a handshake and can learn any language. Right?
Oh
Ooh.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
a pretty interesting one. Yes.
They've actually thought
yeah.
about that one.
Yeah, I feel like they actually thought about that one. They were thinking, is like, if I could have any superpower, what could it be? And they landed on that one.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it depends. So the people that are in question here are actually travel bloggers. So they actually travel to a lot of different countries and meet a lot of different people. So it makes
Right.
sense from their perspective.
Yeah. I was thinking it's like some guy. I was thinking of some guy having an extra long time in the bathroom. You're like, I wonder. The random ruminations.
Okay. If you were not a life orchestrator or whatever you're doing today, or Ph.D. in environmental engineering, what would you be instead?
Stand-up comedian.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, that's a good
It
one.
goes back to speaking. Yeah, there's a theme generating here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I also remember you mentioned comedy was a big piece of what you enjoyed.
Right.
So it makes sense. It's like a full circle moment. It's
coming back.
you really love that, growing up and through all the stuff that you're going through and all that. And so it makes sense that if I'm connecting the dots there, it makes sense that you refer to stand-up comedy as what you want to do.
Yeah, and that's a way of getting other people out of their states, whatever they're in, like depression or whatever it is. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, last question in the series. What's been your biggest accomplishment in the last 1 or 2 years?
Kavir.
That's actually a good answer.
No, and we were talking about this before, right? They grow up really fast, right? How old is he gonna be, or he is right now?
So he's like 5.5 weeks, and on the 25th of November, he's going to be 6 months. Sorry,
6 months,
5.5
okay.
months. On the 5th of November, he's going to be 6 months. Yeah.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's a major milestone coming up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's growing so fast. He's already crawling. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, he's mobile, officially mobile.
Yep. Now you got to actually pay attention to him.
Now it's probably time to, I'm sure you've already done it, but baby-proof everything.
Baby proof is coming. Yep, it's coming.
Awesome. All right, I guess we are moving towards the end of our discussion, but before we wrap, last question, Varun. Do you have any recommendations for our listeners? And a recommendation could be a piece of media or just general advice. Media could be like a book or TV series or a podcast, or in general advice also works.
So I think there's this book called Our Body's Many Cries for Water. So before my PhD was, water doctor, because I was focused on water engineering. Now that water doctor title has transformed into me telling people to drink more water. So this book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, it was written by this Persian doctor back in the 90s or late 80s when they were going through the revolution. He was thrown in jail, and in jail he observed the prisoners like having no energy, just laying against the wall, not being able to support themselves energy-wise. And he was like trying to figure out, okay, what's the treatment for this? And all he did was give them water, and within 3 hours, he saw a noticeable difference in their states. And he realized that hydration, like these guys were dehydrated, all they needed was water, and within 6 hours, they were back to their regular energy levels. And so he said, that's when he started diving deeper into what water is, properties, understanding how it affects our body. And he says that about 50% of all the common diseases, ailments that exist, if you just drink enough water, it'll just go away. Like you don't need anything else. You don't need medication for that. And so my message to people is drink more water. That doesn't mean that, hey, everyone should drink a certain amount. Like, there's standard that exists. Like you need this much water. I feel like every body is different. My body has a lot of heat, generates a lot of heat, so it needs more water. For example, my wife's body is it's more cooler, and it retains more water, so she doesn't need to drink as much water. But so I feel like there's a different level for everyone, but there is a level where once you cross beyond it, things will start unlocking in your system. Like you won't feel fatigue anymore. Like you'll feel like you'll have unlimited energy. Like it's constant. Like you won't feel tired as much. Just by drinking enough water. So that's my message for people. If you want to read more about it, Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And the doctor's name it's got Batman in his last name. Let's just put it at that.
Okay, that's actually pretty cool.
That's good. It's good. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, Dr. Varun. This was so much fun to learn a little bit about spirituality, all the stuff you've gone into, especially the food charity that you started and scaled up. That was really interesting. I hope our listeners, that topic resonates with them and they get involved. So, thank you so much for joining. As we close out, I want to remind everyone again, if you're not already connected to our YouTube channel at Your Life Unfiltered, please be sure to give us a subscribe. Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And subscribe.
All right.